Hey, beautiful souls. Welcome back to my channel. Today, I'm sharing a story that will make you question everything you think you know about love, loyalty, and standing up for yourself. This is about a woman named Jessica from Phoenix, Arizona, whose life changed forever the night she decided to stop being a doormat. Grab your favorite drink because this journey has more twists than a mountain highway. Jessica, 26, had been dating Ryan, 28, for almost 2.5 years. He worked as a marketing coordinator at a mid-sized tech company in Scottsdale, and like many modern workplaces, the lines between professional and personal relationships were, well, let's just say they were blurrier than a drunk person's vision after a company happy hour. Enter Melissa, Ryan's work wife. You know the type, ladies. The woman who somehow inserts herself into every aspect of your man's professional life, and slowly but surely starts creeping into his personal life too. Melissa was 24, fresh out of college, with that aggressive confidence that comes from never having faced real consequences for her actions. It was a Thursday evening in March when Ryan came home to their shared apartment near Tempe Town Lake. Jessica was in the kitchen, preparing dinner, her famous Southwest chicken and rice bowl that Ryan always said was better than any restaurant. She'd spent the day working from home as a graphic designer for a small marketing firm, and she was looking forward to a quiet evening together. "Hey, babe," Ryan said, but his tone was off. Jessica had learned to read the subtle changes in his voice over their years together. This wasn't his usual, "Hey, babe, I'm home and happy to see you" voice. This was his, "Hey, babe, I need to tell you something you're not going to like" voice. Jessica turned around, wooden spoon still in her hand, and gave him her full attention. "What's up?" Ryan set down his laptop bag and ran his fingers through his brown hair. Another telltale sign he was nervous. "So, Melissa is throwing this party at her place on Saturday. It's like a housewarming thing since she just moved into that new apartment in Old Town." Jessica smiled, genuinely excited. She'd been cooped up in their apartment too much lately, and a party sounded fun. Plus, she'd only met Melissa a few times at company events, and she wanted to get to know the people Ryan worked with. "That sounds great. What time should we be there?" The silence that followed was deafening. Ryan looked everywhere except at Jessica's eyes. The ceiling, the floor, the refrigerator covered in their vacation photos and grocery lists. "Well, here's the thing," he started, and Jessica felt her stomach drop. "Melissa specifically said it's going to be a pretty wild night. Lots of drinking games, you know how it is. And since you don't really drink much," she thought, and I agree, "that it might not be your scene." Jessica felt like she'd been slapped. She set the wooden spoon down carefully, buying herself a moment to process what she'd just heard. "I'm sorry, what?" "Look, Jess, you know I love you," Ryan continued, his voice taking on that patronizing tone she was starting to hate. "But you have to admit, you're not exactly a party person. Remember Sarah's birthday last month? You spent half the night checking your phone and asking when we could leave because you had that client presentation on Monday. That was one time, Ryan, and I stayed and had fun once I relaxed. Did you, though? Because everyone could tell you were uncomfortable. Melissa mentioned it afterward, actually. She said it seemed like I was babysitting instead of enjoying myself." The audacity hit Jessica like a freight train. "Melissa said that? Don't get mad at her," Ryan said quickly, already in protective mode. "She was just looking out for me, you know? And honestly, she's right. You've never really clicked with my work friends. You always say you're tired, or you have work early, or you don't feel like drinking. It's fine, babe, but it does put a damper on the vibe." Jessica felt her cheeks burning, but not from embarrassment, from anger. "So let me get this straight. Your work wife decided that I'm not fun enough to attend a party with my own boyfriend, and you agreed with her?" "Don't call her that," Ryan said, his voice getting defensive. "Melissa isn't my work wife. We're just friends. And this isn't about you not being fun enough. It's about, well, okay, maybe it is a little bit. But Jess, you have to see it from my perspective. I work with these people every day. My reputation matters." "Your reputation?" Jessica's voice was rising despite her efforts to stay calm. "What exactly are you afraid I'm going to do, Ryan? Embarrass you by not getting blackout drunk? Ruin your image by having actual conversations instead of playing beer pong? Ryan sighed, the sound so condescending that Jessica wanted to throw something at him. This is exactly what I mean. You're getting all worked up over nothing. Melissa is throwing one party, Jessica. One party. It's not the end of the world if you skip it. It's not about the party, Ryan, and you know it. But did he know it? Jessica was starting to wonder if Ryan understood anything about how his relationship with Melissa made her feel. The constant texting, the inside jokes, the way Melissa always seemed to need Ryan's help with something right when he and Jessica had made plans. Look, Ryan said, grabbing a beer from the fridge like the conversation was over. I'm going to the party. You can either be cool about it, or you can spend Saturday night sulking. Your choice. Jessica watched him walk into the living room and turn on the PlayStation, effectively ending their discussion. She stood in the kitchen, surrounded by the dinner she'd made with love, and felt something crack inside her chest. Not break, not yet, but definitely crack. She finished cooking in silence, plated Ryan's food, and left it on the counter. When he called from the living room asking where dinner was, she was already in their bedroom with the door closed, ordering Thai food on her phone. Saturday arrived with the kind of perfect Arizona weather that made Jessica remember why she'd moved to Phoenix in the first place. She'd grown up in Portland, Oregon, where gray skies and constant drizzle had been her norm for 24 years. The desert sun streaming through their bedroom windows should have lifted her spirits, but instead, it illuminated her growing resentment. Ryan had been getting ready for Melissa's party since noon. He'd showered twice, spent 45 minutes choosing between 3 different button-down shirts, and used more hair product than Jessica used in a month. For someone going to a casual house party, he was putting in an awful lot of effort. You sure you're okay with this? Ryan asked, appearing in the bedroom doorway. He was wearing the blue shirt that Jessica had bought him for their anniversary. The one she'd told him made his eyes look incredible. Jessica looked up from her laptop where she'd been working on a logo design for a local yoga studio. I'm fine, Ryan. You don't seem fine. What exactly do you want me to say? That I'm thrilled my boyfriend is prioritizing his work wife's opinion over his girlfriend's feelings? That I'm excited to spend Saturday night alone while you play happy family with someone who clearly can't stand me? Ryan's jaw tightened. Melissa doesn't hate you, Jessica. You barely know her. I know enough. Jessica saved her work and closed her laptop. I know that she has an opinion about everything concerning your life. I know that she somehow always needs your help with things her boyfriend should be helping her with. And I know that she's apparently the expert on what kind of girlfriend you should have. That's not fair. Isn't it? Jessica stood up and walked to their dresser, pulling out comfortable pajamas. When was the last time you made a decision about us without considering what Melissa would think? Ryan was quiet for too long. When Jessica turned around, he was staring at the floor again. Go to your party, Ryan. Have fun. But we're going to have a real conversation about this when you get back. And I mean a real conversation, not you dismissing my concerns while defending her. Ryan left at 7 p.m., and Jessica tried to make the best of her unexpected solo Saturday. She ordered her favorite sushi, opened a bottle of the wine she'd been saving, and settled in for a night of Netflix and actual relaxation. By 11 p.m., she was feeling pretty good about life. Maybe some alone time was exactly what she needed. The phone rang at 3:17 a.m. Jessica jolted awake, her heart immediately racing. Late-night phone calls never meant anything good. She fumbled for her phone on the nightstand, expecting to see her mom's number or maybe her sister's. Instead, she saw Ryan's contact photo, a picture of him grinning at her from their trip to Sedona last fall. Hello? She answered, her voice thick with sleep. Jessica! Ryan slurred into the phone, and her heart sank. He was absolutely wasted. Baby, I need you to come get me. Jessica sat up in bed, immediately alert despite the late hour. Ryan, are you okay? What happened? I'm at Melissa's still, and I need a ride home. Can you come get me, please? What happened to getting an Uber or calling a taxi? Jessica was already getting out of bed, muscle memory taking over. How many times had she done this before? How many nights had she dropped everything to rescue Ryan from his own poor decisions? I don't have money for a taxi, Ryan mumbled, and Jessica could hear loud music and laughter in the background. "What do you mean you don't have money? I gave you $60 this morning, specifically for a ride home if you were drinking." There was a long pause, filled only with party noise and what sounded like Ryan moving away from the crowd. "Well, here's the thing," he said, and Jessica could practically hear him trying to sober up enough to explain. "Melissa got really hungry around midnight, right? And there's this amazing pizza place called Rosario's that's open late, and she'd never been there, so—" Jessica felt her blood pressure rising. "So what, Ryan? So we all went to get pizza, and Melissa didn't bring her wallet, and her boyfriend—" "Wait!" Jessica interrupted. "Her boyfriend was at the party? I thought you said it was a work thing." "Well, Marcus was there, yeah. But he was being weird about money, because they just had some fight about her spending too much on decorations or whatever. So when she wanted to try everything on the menu, really experience the place—" Jessica was fully awake now, anger burning away any lingering drowsiness. "You spent my $60 buying pizza for Melissa?" "So, it wasn't just pizza," Ryan said defensively. "We got garlic bread, wings, those dessert pizza bites, and drinks. She wanted to try their whole menu, and I felt bad because Marcus was being such a jerk about it." "You felt bad?" Jessica repeated slowly. "So you spent the money I gave you. Money specifically meant to ensure you could get home safely. On a food tour for another woman? When you put it like that, it sounds bad." "Ryan, it is bad!" Jessica was pacing now, her bare feet cold against the hardwood floor. "You chose to spend our money on Melissa's appetite instead of your own safety, instead of my peace of mind knowing you could get home." Okay. I know it was stupid. But can we talk about this when I get home? I'm really drunk, Jess, and I just want to come home to you." Jessica looked at the clock. 3:24 a.m. Melissa's apartment was in Old Town Scottsdale, which was a solid 45-minute drive from their place in Tempe. She had a client presentation on Monday that she still needed to finish preparing for. She had laundry to do tomorrow, groceries to buy, and a dozen other weekend tasks that would now have to wait. But underneath all those practical concerns was something deeper. Despite her anger, despite her frustration, despite the growing feeling that Ryan was taking her for granted, she loved him, and she couldn't bear the thought of him trying to drive home drunk or getting into some stranger's car. "Send me the address," she said finally. "I'll be there in an hour. You're the best, Jess. I love you so much. I'll make this up to you, I promise." Jessica hung up without saying, "I love you" back. The drive to Melissa's apartment gave Jessica too much time to think. Phoenix at 3:30 a.m. was a different world. Empty freeways, neon signs reflecting off her windshield, and the kind of silence that made your own thoughts sound deafeningly loud. She'd thrown on leggings, an oversized ASU sweatshirt, and flip-flops. She looked exactly like what she was, a woman who'd been rudely awakened to clean up someone else's mess. Again. As she drove through the empty streets, Jessica found herself thinking about the early days of her relationship with Ryan. They'd met at a coffee shop near Arizona State University, where she'd been finishing her graphic design degree, and he'd been working on his marketing MBA. He'd been charming, funny, ambitious. He'd made her laugh until her cheeks hurt and convinced her to try new restaurants, new hiking trails, new adventures around the valley. When had that stopped? When had adventurous Ryan become Ryan who needs rescuing Ryan? When had "let's try something new together" become "sorry, you wouldn't fit in"? The drive also gave her time to really process what Ryan had told her about the money. $60 was a lot for them right now. Jessica's freelance graphic design work was going well, but it was still feast or famine. Some months were great, others required careful budgeting. Ryan's salary at the tech company was decent, but Phoenix rent wasn't cheap, and they were trying to save for a real vacation together. Their first trip outside Arizona since they'd moved here. $60 was groceries for a week. It was half their electric bill. It was a tank of gas. And Ryan had blown it on pizza for Melissa without a second thought. But even deeper than the money issue was what it represented. Ryan had made a choice. When faced with Melissa's desire to try a new restaurant and Jessica's need for him to get home safely, he'd chosen Melissa. He'd prioritized her immediate want over Jessica's legitimate concern. Jessica pulled into the parking lot of Melissa's apartment complex at 4:09 a.m. The complex was one of those trendy new developments in Old Town, all clean lines and artificial desert landscaping. Every unit probably cost more in rent than Jessica and Ryan's mortgage back in Oregon would have been. She called Ryan's phone, and it rang 7 times before he answered. "Jessica, you made it!" His voice was still slurred, still too loud for 4 a.m. "I'm in the parking lot. Come down." "Actually, can you come up? Melissa lost her necklace earlier, and we're all looking for it. She's really upset." Jessica closed her eyes and counted to 10. "Ryan, it's 4 in the morning. Come, down, now." "But Jess." "Now, Ryan." She hung up and waited. Through her windshield, she could see lights on in several apartments, and she could faintly hear music and voices. How neighbors weren't calling noise complaints was beyond her. But maybe that was just how things worked in trendy apartment complexes, where everyone was young and childless. 15 minutes later, Ryan finally emerged from the building. Even from a distance, Jessica could see he was drunk. Not just tipsy, but stumbling, swaying drunk. He was carrying his dress shoes and wearing only socks. His button-down shirt was partially untucked, and his hair looked like he'd been running his hands through it for hours. He opened the passenger door and immediately filled the car with the smell of alcohol, pizza grease, and whatever cologne he'd bathed himself in before leaving. "Hey, beautiful," he said, leaning over to kiss her cheek. Jessica turned her head, so he caught mostly hair. "Put your seatbelt on." "Someone's grumpy," Ryan said, but he did as he was told. "Melissa said you'd probably be mad about the money thing. She said you seem like someone who holds grudges." Jessica gripped the steering wheel tighter. "Melissa said that?" "Well, not in a mean way. She just said that some women get really uptight about money, and that's okay. That's just how they are." "Some women?" "Yeah, like, you know how you are about our budget and stuff. Melissa never gives Marcus grief about spending money on his friends or whatever. She's just more laid back about stuff like that." Jessica started the car without responding. She needed to focus on getting them home safely, not on the fact that her boyfriend and his work wife had apparently spent the evening discussing her personality flaws. She'd made it exactly 2 blocks when Ryan started talking again. "Oh my God, Jess, you should have seen tonight. Melissa did this impression of you that was so funny. She was all like, 'Ryan, did you remember to budget for fun? Ryan, make sure you're home by a reasonable hour. Ryan, maybe we should discuss your relationship with your female coworkers.'" He was laughing so hard, he could barely get the words out. Jessica felt something cold settle in her stomach. "She did an impression of me?" "Ah, it was hilarious. She had your voice down perfectly, and that little face you make when you're worried about something. Everyone was cracking up." "Everyone?" "Well, everyone who knows you. Like, the people from work who've met you at the Christmas party and stuff." Jessica realized she was holding her breath. "What did you say when she was doing this impression?" "I was dying laughing. I mean, she really nailed it. Even Marcus said it was spot on, and he's only met you like twice." The cold feeling in Jessica's stomach was spreading. Her boyfriend, the man she'd driven 45 minutes at 4 a.m. to rescue, had spent the evening laughing while another woman mocked her. He'd been so entertained by this woman's impersonation of his girlfriend that he was still laughing about it. "Ryan," Jessica said quietly, "do you understand how that makes me feel?" "What?" "Come on, Jess, it was just a joke. Melissa wasn't being mean or anything. She was just, you know how you can be sometimes." "How can I be?" "You know, serious, worried, like always thinking about responsibilities and stuff, instead of just living in the moment." Jessica felt tears starting to build behind her eyes, but she blinked them away. She needed to see the road. She needed to get them home. They could deal with all of this when they were both sober and safe. But Ryan wasn't done. "Actually, Melissa said something really smart tonight. She said that some people are just naturally more compatible than others, you know? Like, she and I can talk about work stuff for hours, and we have the same sense of humor, and we both like to be spontaneous. She said it's not anyone's fault when personalities don't mesh perfectly." "Personalities don't mesh perfectly," Jessica repeated. "Right. Like you and I are great together, but we're different. You're more of a homebody, I'm more social. You like planning everything, I like to see what happens. It's not bad, it's just different." Jessica was quiet for several minutes, processing this information. According to Ryan, Melissa had spent the evening analyzing Jessica and Ryan's relationship compatibility, and Ryan had apparently been an enthusiastic participant in this discussion. How long were you and Melissa talking about our relationship tonight? I don't know, not that long. It just came up because Marcus was being weird about money, and she mentioned how lucky I am that you don't give me grief about stuff like that. Wait, no, that's not right. Ryan paused, his drunk brain trying to sort out what he'd meant to say. She said Marcus is lucky that she doesn't give him grief like some women would. And then we talked about different relationship styles and stuff. Different relationship styles? Yeah, like how some women are more controlling and some are more chill. Melissa's definitely more on the chill side. Jessica felt like she was having an out-of-body experience. Was this really happening? Was her boyfriend really sitting in her car at 4:30 a.m., telling her about how he and another woman had discussed what was wrong with their relationship? Ryan, she said carefully, I need you to hear how this sounds to me. How what sounds? You spent the evening at a party I wasn't invited to, discussing our relationship problems with another woman, laughing while she mocked me, and then spent my taxi money on her dinner. Do you understand how that looks? Ryan was quiet for a moment. When he spoke again, his voice had a defensive edge. It wasn't like that, Jessica. You're making it sound way worse than it was. Then explain to me how it was. Yeah, it was just friends talking, friends having a good time. You know how conversations go when you're drinking. You talk about everything, work, relationships, family, whatever. It wasn't some big analysis of our problems. But you do think we have problems. Every couple has problems, Jess. That's normal. What problems do you think we have, Ryan? Another long pause. Jessica could practically hear the wheels turning in his drunk brain, trying to figure out how to answer without making things worse. I don't know, little stuff, like how you worry too much about money, and you don't like going out as much as I do, and sometimes you get jealous of my friendships. I get jealous of your friendships? Well, yeah, like with Melissa. You always make comments about how much we text, or how often she needs help with stuff. It's like you don't trust me or something. Jessica felt the last piece of something break inside her chest. The crack from Thursday night finally gave way completely. Ryan, she said, her voice eerily calm, I want you to listen very carefully to what I'm about to say. Okay, if you ever grab the steering wheel while I'm driving, I will pull over and leave you on the side of the road. I don't care where we are, what time it is, or how drunk you are. I will leave you there, and I will drive home alone. Ryan's alcohol-clouded brain took a moment to process this seemingly random statement. What? Why are you talking about the steering wheel? I'm not going to grab the steering wheel. I'm telling you this now, while we're both calm, so there's no confusion later. If you interfere with my driving in any way, our relationship is over. Do you understand me? Yeah, sure, whatever. But Jess, why are you even thinking about that? That's so random. Jessica didn't answer. She just drove through the empty Phoenix streets, while Ryan dozed against the passenger window, completely oblivious to the fact that everything between them had just changed. They drove in relative silence for the next 20 minutes, Ryan drifting in and out of drunken sleep, while Jessica navigated the empty highways. Her mind was spinning with everything that had happened, not just tonight, but the past few months. How had she not seen it before? The way Ryan consistently prioritized Melissa's feelings over hers, the way he dismissed her concerns, the way he seemed to enjoy another woman's company more than his own girlfriend's. Jessica was so lost in thought that she almost didn't notice when Ryan suddenly perked up, his drunken energy returning as they got closer to home. Oh my God, Jess! I forgot to tell you the funniest story! Ryan's voice was loud again, filled with that obnoxious enthusiasm that drunk people got when they remembered something they thought was hilarious. Ryan, it's almost 5 a.m. Can we please just get home quietly? No, you have to hear this. So Marcus, right? Melissa's boyfriend? He was being such a dick all night about money. Like, she wanted to redecorate the living room, and he was all, we need to save money, and that's too expensive, and blah, blah, blah. Jessica gripped the steering wheel tighter, but didn't respond. So anyway, Melissa was telling me how frustrated she gets with his attitude, and she said, this is the funny part. She said, at least Ryan doesn't act like Jessica's controlling behavior is cute. Can you believe Marcus said that about you? That your budgeting is controlling behavior? Jessica felt like the air had been sucked out of the car. Marcus said that about me? Yeah, and Melissa defended you, kind of. She said you're not controlling, you're just, what was the word? Practical to a fault. Which I thought was nice of her, considering. Considering what? Well, considering she thinks you're kind of uptight. The words hung in the air like smoke. Jessica felt her vision tunnel, her hands trembling slightly on the steering wheel. Melissa thinks I'm uptight. I mean, she's not wrong though, right? You have to admit, you do worry about every little thing. Like tonight, most girlfriends would have just said, "Have fun, baby," instead of giving me taxi money and making me promise to be safe. Most girlfriends, Jessica repeated numbly. Yeah, Melissa said she would never stress about Marcus getting home because she trusts him to figure it out. She said relationships work better when you're not constantly trying to manage each other. Jessica realized she was holding her breath again. So you and Melissa spent the evening talking about what's wrong with me and our relationship. Yeah, it wasn't what's wrong with you, Jess. God, why do you always make everything so dramatic? We were just talking about different relationship styles, like how some people are more independent and some people are more dependent. And I'm dependent? Well, yeah, kind of. I mean, you want to know where I am all the time? You worry if I don't text you back right away. You get upset when I make plans without checking with you first. That's pretty textbook-dependent behavior. Jessica felt tears starting to form again, but this time they weren't tears of hurt. They were tears of rage. Ryan, do you love me? The question seemed to surprise him. Of course I love you. Why would you ask that? Because the man I love wouldn't spend an evening letting another woman tear apart his girlfriend's character. The man I love wouldn't laugh while someone mocked me. The man I love wouldn't spend money meant for his safety on another woman's whims. Oh, okay. You're getting all worked up again. Look, I'm sorry about the money, all right? I'll pay you back tomorrow. And I'm sorry if you feel bad about the Melissa stuff, but honestly, you're blowing it way out of proportion. I'm blowing it out of proportion? Yeah. It's like you're looking for reasons to be upset. Melissa was just trying to help me understand relationship dynamics better. She's been with Marcus for 3 years, so she has experience with making relationships work. Jessica was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was dangerously calm. What kind of help did she offer? Well, she said that successful couples give each other space to be themselves. Like, she encouraged Marcus to join that softball league even though she doesn't like sports. And Marcus doesn't get mad when she goes out with her girlfriends or when she needs to work late. And what did she say I should be doing differently? Ryan shifted in his seat, some part of his drunk brain finally registering that this was dangerous territory. It wasn't like that, Jess. She wasn't giving advice about you specifically. What did she say? She mentioned that some women try to change their boyfriends instead of accepting them, and that confident women don't feel threatened by their partner having close friendships. So I'm not confident. I didn't say that. But Melissa did. Ryan didn't answer, which was an answer in itself. They were only about 10 minutes from home now, driving through the quiet neighborhoods of Tempe. Streetlights cast long shadows across the empty roads, and the first hints of dawn were starting to lighten the eastern sky. Jessica had never felt more awake or more alone. You know what, Ryan? Melissa is right about one thing. Yeah? Confident women don't feel threatened by their partner's friendships, but confident women also don't tolerate being disrespected. I never disrespected you. You spent the evening laughing while another woman mocked me. You spent money meant for your safety on her entertainment. You came home and told me all about how she thinks I'm uptight, controlling, and insecure. If that's not disrespect, what is? Ryan was quiet for almost a full minute. When he finally spoke, his voice had lost some of its drunken bravado. I think you're being really unfair right now. Unfair how? You're twisting everything around to make me look like a bad guy. I went to a party. I had some conversations with friends. I made one mistake with the money. That's it. But you're acting like I cheated on you or something. Did you? Did I what? Cheat on me. Of course not. Jesus, Jessica, what kind of question is that? The kind of question women ask when they find out their boyfriends have been having intimate conversations about their relationship problems with other women. They weren't intimate conversations. Really. Because it sounds like you and Melissa talked about things you've never talked about with me. When have you ever told me that you think I'm too dependent? When have you ever said you feel like I don't give you enough space? When have you ever mentioned that you think I worry too much? Ryan didn't have an answer for that. You know what the really messed up part is? Jessica continued. I spent 2.5 years trying to be the perfect girlfriend for you. I learned to like hiking, even though I hate being sweaty. I watched every single Marvel movie because you love them. I learned to cook your mom's lasagna recipe. I supported your career. I celebrated your successes. I comforted you when work was stressful. You did, Ryan said quietly. And in return, you tell another woman all the ways I'm inadequate. You laugh when she mocks me. You prioritize her feelings over mine, her wants over my needs. You make me feel like I'm crazy for expecting basic respect and consideration. Jessica pulled into their apartment complex parking lot, but she didn't get out of the car immediately. She needed to finish this conversation while she still had the courage. Ryan, I want you to really think about something. If I had spent tonight at a party with another man, talking about all your flaws, laughing while he mocked you, spending money meant for our safety on his entertainment, how would you feel? That's different. How? Because you wouldn't do that. You're right, I wouldn't. Because I love you enough to defend you when you're not around. I respect you enough to keep our private business private, and I care about you enough to prioritize your safety and feelings over anyone else's. Ryan looked like he was starting to sober up, the weight of the conversation cutting through his alcohol haze. Jess, but here's what I'm realizing, Jessica said, turning off the car and sitting in the sudden silence. You don't feel the same way about me. That's not true. Isn't it? When was the last time you defended me to someone who was criticizing me? When was the last time you chose my comfort over someone else's convenience? When was the last time you made me feel like I was your priority? Ryan opened his mouth to answer, then closed it again. I can't think of any either, Jessica said softly. They sat in the dark parking lot for several minutes, both lost in their own thoughts. Finally, Ryan broke the silence. So what are you saying? You want to break up with me because I had some conversations at a party? Maya, I'm saying that I'm tired of feeling like I have to compete with another woman for my own boyfriend's loyalty. I'm tired of being made to feel like my very reasonable expectations are somehow unreasonable. And I'm really tired of being told that wanting respect and consideration makes me controlling. I never said you were controlling. You didn't have to. You let someone else say it for you. Jessica got out of the car and started walking toward their apartment. Ryan followed, stumbling slightly as he tried to keep up. Jess, wait. Can we please just go inside and talk about this when we're both thinking clearly? We are thinking clearly, Ryan. At least I am. You're drunk, but that doesn't change what happened tonight. It doesn't change what you said or what you allowed to be said about me. They rode the elevator to their third-floor apartment in silence. Jessica unlocked the door and went straight to the bedroom, where she changed into comfortable pajamas and began pulling a blanket and pillow from the closet. What are you doing? Ryan asked from the doorway. Making a bed on the couch. Why? Jessica looked at him, standing there in his wrinkled shirt and sock feet, his hair disheveled and his eyes bloodshot. For a moment, she felt a pang of the old love, the urge to take care of him, to make sure he had water and aspirin, to help him get ready for bed. But then she remembered his laughter as Melissa mocked her voice. She remembered the casual way he dismissed her feelings. She remembered the money, their money, spent on another woman's appetite. Because I need some space to think. And honestly, Ryan, I don't want to share a bed with someone who spent the evening discussing our relationship problems with another woman. It wasn't like that. Yes, it was. It was exactly like that. And until you can admit that what you did was wrong, not just the money, but all of it, we don't have anything else to talk about. Jessica walked past him to the living room and began making up the couch. Ryan followed, hovering uncertainly by the coffee table. Jess, come on, don't do this. I love you. I made a mistake, okay? I'm sorry about the money. I'll be more careful about the stuff I say about us to other people. Can we please just go to bed and figure this out tomorrow? Jessica smoothed the blanket over the couch cushions and looked up at him. Do you think I'm controlling? What? It's a simple question, Ryan. Do you think I'm controlling? He hesitated just long enough to give her the answer she needed. Sometimes maybe you worry a little too much about. That's all I need to hear, Jessica interrupted. Good night, Ryan. She turned off the living room light and lay down on the couch, pulling the blanket up to her chin. After a few minutes, she heard Ryan's footsteps heading toward the bedroom, then the sound of the door closing. Jessica lay in the dark for a long time, listening to the sounds of the apartment complex settling around her. Somewhere upstairs, a toilet flushed. Outside, a car door slammed. In the distance, the early morning traffic was starting to build on the 101 freeway. But inside her chest, everything was quiet. The crack that had formed on Thursday night, the break that had happened in the car, it was all settled now. She felt empty, but also oddly peaceful. Like finally admitting a truth she'd been avoiding for months had lifted a weight she didn't even know she'd been carrying. Jessica knew that when morning came, she and Ryan would have to have another conversation. A bigger conversation. A conversation about whether their relationship was worth saving, and if so, what it would take to fix it. But that was tomorrow's problem. Tonight, she just needed to sleep. Jessica woke up on the couch at 11 a.m., her neck stiff from the unfamiliar sleeping position. Sunlight was streaming through their living room windows, highlighting dust motes dancing in the air and the general messiness that had accumulated over the past few weeks. When had their apartment become so cluttered? When had she stopped caring about keeping their shared space clean and welcoming? She could hear movement in the kitchen, the sound of the coffee maker brewing, cabinet doors opening and closing, the clink of dishes. Ryan was awake and apparently trying to make breakfast. This was either a good sign or a very bad sign, depending on whether he was genuinely trying to make amends or just attempting to smooth things over without actually addressing their problems. Jessica stretched and folded her blanket, then made her way to the bathroom. In the mirror, she looked exactly like someone who'd been awakened at 3 a.m. to clean up her boyfriend's mess. Her long brown hair was tangled, she had dark circles under her green eyes, and her ASU sweatshirt was twisted from tossing and turning on the couch. She brushed her teeth, washed her face, and pulled her hair into a messy bun. Whatever conversation was waiting for her in the kitchen, she needed coffee first. Ryan was standing at the stove, flipping pancakes. He was still wearing yesterday's jeans, but had changed into a clean t-shirt. His hair was wet from a shower, and Jessica could smell his soap and shampoo from across the room. He looked up when she entered, giving her a tentative smile. "Morning, beautiful. I made your favorite, blueberry pancakes." Jessica nodded and headed straight for the coffee pot. "Thank you. How'd you sleep on the couch?" "Fine." They stood in awkward silence while Jessica poured her coffee and added cream. Ryan continued cooking, occasionally glancing at her like he was trying to gauge her mood. The apartment felt different somehow, like the easy familiarity they'd built over 2.5 years had evaporated overnight. "Jess, about last night. Are you sober now?" she interrupted. "Yeah, completely. I've been up for a couple hours, had some water, took some aspirin. I feel awful about everything that happened." "Awful how?" Ryan turned off the burner and faced her fully. "I was thinking about what you said in the car, and I realize I really messed up. Not just with the money, but with the other stuff too." Jessica sipped her coffee and waited for him to continue. "I shouldn't have let Melissa say those things about you, and I definitely shouldn't have told you about them like they were funny. That was really insensitive of me." "Okay." Jessica's voice was neutral, giving nothing away. "And you were right about the money. I made a selfish decision, and I put you in a bad position by not thinking ahead about how I was going to get home. Anything else?" Ryan ran his hand through his damp hair, a gesture Jessica had once found endearing, but now just found irritating. I guess maybe I haven't been the most supportive boyfriend lately. I've been taking you for granted." "Ryan, do you remember what I told you in the car last night? About the steering wheel?" He looked confused by the apparent change of subject. Yeah. You said if I ever grabbed the steering wheel while you were driving, you'd leave me on the side of the road. Do you understand why I said that?" "Not really, no. It seemed kind of random." Jessica set down her coffee mug and looked directly into his eyes. "I said it because I needed to establish a boundary that you couldn't dismiss, minimize, or negotiate away. I needed to say something that would get through to you about consequences and respect. Okay, Ryan, you've spent months dismissing my concerns about Melissa. Every time I've tried to talk to you about how your relationship with her makes me feel, you've told me I'm overreacting, I'm being jealous, I'm being insecure. You've made me feel crazy for having very reasonable concerns about boundaries. Ryan's face started to flush, but he didn't interrupt. Last night was the culmination of all of that. You chose her comfort over my security. You participated in conversations that disrespected me. You came home and told me about it like it was entertainment. And when I tried to explain why that hurt, you told me I was being dramatic and unfair. Jess, I'm sorry. Ma, I'm not done. Jessica's voice was firm, but not loud. The steering wheel thing is a metaphor, Ryan. It's about you grabbing control of situations that affect my safety and well-being without considering my feelings or my rights. It's about you making decisions that impact both of us without including me in the process. Ryan was quiet, processing her words. So here's what's going to happen, Jessica continued. We're going to have one conversation about this. One honest conversation where you take full responsibility for your actions and their impact on me, where you explain how you're going to change your behavior going forward, and where we establish new boundaries that we both agree to respect. Okay, I can do that. If you interrupt me, dismiss my feelings, defend Melissa, or try to minimize what happened, this conversation is over, and so are we. If you grab the metaphorical steering wheel one more time, I'm walking away. Do you understand? Ryan nodded, but Jessica could see the defensive wall building behind his eyes. This was going to be harder than he thought. Good, sit down. They sat across from each other at their small dining table, the pancakes growing cold on the stove. Jessica had planned this conversation in her head during the hours she'd lain awake on the couch, and she knew exactly what she needed to say. Ryan, I need you to explain to me what happened last night from my perspective. Not what you intended, not what you think should have happened, but what actually happened from my point of view. Ryan's brow furrowed as he tried to work through this unusual request. You got woken up at 3 a.m. because I needed a ride? Keep going. And you found out that I had spent the money you gave me on someone else? Who? On Melissa. And what else did you tell me about your evening? Ryan was quiet for a long time. Jessica could practically see him replaying their car conversation, trying to view it through her eyes instead of his own. I told you that Melissa had done an impression of you, he said finally, his voice getting quieter. And that everyone had laughed at it, including me. What else? I told you about the conversation we'd had about relationships, about how she thought some women were more controlling than others. Controlling like who? Ryan's voice was barely above a whisper now. Like you. And how do you think that made me feel? Horrible, he admitted. It probably made you feel like I don't have your back. Like I'm more loyal to her than I am to you. Jessica felt some of the tension in her chest ease slightly. He was starting to get it. How do you think it felt for me to drive 45 minutes at 3 a.m. to rescue someone who had just spent the evening listening to another woman tear apart my character? It probably felt like I was using you, Ryan said, his face flushing with shame. Like I was taking advantage of your love for me. And how do you think it felt to realize that my own boyfriend agrees with her assessment of me? Ryan looked up sharply. I don't agree with... Yes, you do. When I asked if you thought I was controlling, you said I worry too much about things. When I asked about your problems with our relationship, you listed the exact same things Melissa had mentioned. You do think I'm controlling, uptight, and overly dependent. You just let her say it out loud first. Ryan opened his mouth to argue, then closed it again. Jessica could see the moment when he realized she was right. He started, then stopped. I guess maybe I have been feeling frustrated about some things. But I didn't realize I was being so obvious about it. What things? Well, like how you always want to know where I am and who I'm with. And how you get upset when I make plans without checking with you first. And how you worry about money all the time, even when we're fine. Jessica nodded. Thank you for being honest. Now, I need you to think about something else. Do you think those concerns I have are reasonable or unreasonable? What do you mean? I want to know where you are because I care about your safety and because we live together. If something happened to you, I'd need to know where to find you. Is that reasonable or unreasonable? Reasonable, Ryan admitted. I get upset when you make plans without checking with me because we share financial responsibilities and household duties. If you're going out, I need to know so I can plan accordingly. Is that reasonable or unreasonable? Reasonable. I worry about money because we have limited income and shared expenses. Being financially responsible is how we maintain our standard of living. Is that reasonable or unreasonable? Reasonable. Ryan's voice was getting smaller with each admission. So my behavior isn't controlling, Ryan. It's responsible. It's caring. It's what partners do when they're building a life together. Ryan was staring at his hands now. I never thought about it like that. But Melissa did. She thought about it, and she decided that my perfectly reasonable expectations were character flaws. And instead of defending me or setting her straight, you agreed with her. I'm sorry. Ryan, I need you to understand something. I don't care if you're sorry. Sorry doesn't fix this. I need to know that you understand why what you did was wrong, and I need to know what you're going to do differently going forward. Ryan looked up at her, and for the first time since she'd known him, Jessica saw real fear in his eyes. He was beginning to understand that this wasn't going to be fixed with an apology and some pancakes. What do you need me to do? I need you to choose, Jessica said simply. You can have a close friendship with Melissa, or you can have a relationship with me. But you can't have both. That's not fair. You can't make me choose between my girlfriend and my friend. Jessica stood up from the table. This conversation is over. Wait! Ryan jumped up too, reaching for her hand. I'm sorry, I didn't mean that. Sit down, please. Let's keep talking. You just told me it's not fair for me to ask you to prioritize your girlfriend over the woman who spent last night mocking me. You think I'm being unreasonable for not wanting you to maintain a close friendship with someone who disrespects me and our relationship. I didn't say that. You said exactly that. Jessica pulled her hand away from his. You said it's not fair for me to ask you to choose, which means you don't think the choice is obvious. Jess, please, I love you. I want to be with you. I don't understand why I can't be friends with Melissa if I'm more careful about boundaries. Because she doesn't respect those boundaries, Ryan. She doesn't respect me. She doesn't respect our relationship. And she's made it clear that she thinks she knows better than I do what kind of girlfriend you should have. Jessica walked back to the living room and started folding her blanket. And honestly, the fact that you're even hesitating tells me everything I need to know about where your loyalties lie. That's not true. My loyalty is with you. Is it? Because when you had to choose between her wants and my needs last night, you chose her. When you had to choose between participating in a conversation that mocked me or defending me, you chose to participate. When you had to choose between telling me the truth about how you really see our relationship or protecting my feelings, you chose to hurt me. Ryan stood in the living room doorway, watching her clean up her makeshift bed. What can I do to fix this? I already told you, choose. Can't we compromise? What would a compromise look like, Ryan? I'm genuinely curious. I don't know. Maybe I could just be less close with her, like keep things more professional. You mean like not going to personal parties at her apartment? Not discussing our relationship with her? Not spending our money on her entertainment? Yes, exactly. Those aren't compromises, Ryan. Those are basic boundary expectations in any healthy relationship. The fact that you think those represent some kind of concession tells me you don't understand how far over the line you've already crossed. Jessica folded the last corner of her blanket and looked at him directly. Here's the bottom line. Melissa has made it clear that she doesn't respect me or our relationship. She's actively trying to undermine what we have together, and you've been helping her do it. I won't tolerate that anymore. So what are you saying? I'm saying that if you want to be in a relationship with me, you need to cut contact with Melissa outside of absolutely necessary work interactions. No personal texting, no social media interaction, no personal conversations, no helping her with things outside of work, and definitely no more parties or social gatherings. Ryan's face went through several emotions: surprise, anger, frustration, and finally resignation. And if I can't do that? Then you're choosing her over me, and we're done. They stood looking at each other across their living room, the morning sun casting everything in sharp relief. Jessica felt calm and clear-headed. She'd said what needed to be said. drawn the lines that needed to be drawn. Now it was up to Ryan to decide what kind of man he wanted to be. "I need time to think about this," Ryan said finally. "That's fine. But Ryan, while you're thinking, remember that this isn't about me trying to control who you're friends with. This is about me refusing to be disrespected in my own relationship. There's a difference." Jessica walked past him toward the bedroom. "I'm going to spend the day with my sister. When I get back tonight, you can let me know what you've decided." She was almost to the bedroom door when Ryan called after her. "Jess?" She turned around. "What you said in the car last night, about leaving me on the side of the road if I grabbed the steering wheel. You really meant that, didn't you?" Jessica looked at this man she'd loved for 2.5 years. This man she'd moved across the country for. This man she'd been planning a future with. And she realized that she didn't recognize him anymore. "Yes," she said, "I really meant that." Jessica spent the afternoon with her older sister Emma at the Phoenix Art Museum, walking through the contemporary galleries and trying to process the morning's conversation. Emma lived in Scottsdale with her husband and 2 young kids, and Jessica had always envied her sister's seemingly perfect life. The successful marriage, the beautiful house, the well-behaved children who actually listened when their parents spoke. "You look like hell," Emma said bluntly, as they stood in front of a massive abstract painting. "What's going on?" Jessica found herself spilling the entire story. The party exclusion, the 3 a.m. phone call, the money spent on Melissa, the mocking impression, the ultimatum she'd given Ryan that morning. Emma listened without interruption, her expression growing more concerned with each detail. "Jess," Emma said when the story was finished, "how long has this been going on?" "What do you mean?" I mean, when did you start feeling like you had to compete with another woman for your own boyfriend's attention?" Jessica thought about it. "I guess, maybe 4 or 5 months ago. That's when Melissa started at Ryan's company. At first, it was just normal work friend stuff. But then she started texting him about personal things, asking for his advice about her apartment search, her relationship with Marcus, her family drama. And you said something to Ryan about it?" "Multiple times. But he always said I was being jealous or insecure. He made me feel like my concerns weren't valid." Emma shook her head. "Honey, your concerns were completely valid. What Ryan did last night wasn't a one-time mistake. It was the culmination of months of him prioritizing another woman's feelings over yours." They moved to the next gallery, where a photography exhibit showed images of women in various stages of life. Young girls, new mothers, elderly women. Jessica found herself drawn to a particular photo of a woman about her age, sitting alone at a cafe table, looking out a window with an expression of quiet determination. "Do you think I was too harsh?" Jessica asked. "With the ultimatum, I mean?" "Do you think you were?" "I don't know. Part of me feels like I'm being controlling, just like Melissa said. Maybe I should trust Ryan to set his own boundaries with her." "Jess, look at me." Emma's voice was firm. "Ryan has had months to set appropriate boundaries with Melissa. Not only has he not done it, he's actively made the situation worse. He's shared intimate details about your relationship with her, allowed her to mock you, and spent money meant for both of you on her entertainment." Jessica nodded, feeling some of her doubt ease. "You're not being controlling by asking your boyfriend not to maintain a close personal relationship with someone who actively disrespects you. You're being reasonable. And honestly, the fact that Ryan is even hesitating about this choice tells you everything you need to know about his priorities." They spent another hour at the museum, but Jessica found it hard to concentrate on art when her entire future was hanging in the balance. By 4 p.m., she was ready to go home and face whatever decision Ryan had made. Emma dropped her off at the apartment complex, with a long hug and a reminder to call if she needed anything. Jessica rode the elevator up to the 3rd floor, her stomach churning with anxiety. Part of her hoped Ryan would have chosen her, would have realized that their relationship was more important than his friendship with Melissa. But another part of her, the part that had been paying attention to his behavior for months, suspected she already knew what his answer would be. She opened the apartment door to find Ryan sitting at their dining table with his laptop open, apparently doing work. He looked up when she entered, his expression carefully neutral. "Hey," he said. "How was your day?" "Fine, how was yours?" "I did a lot of thinking like you asked." Jessica set down her purse and joined him at the table, her heart beating fast. And? Ryan closed his laptop and looked at her directly. I think you're right about some things. I haven't been fair to you, and I should have been more thoughtful about how my friendship with Melissa was affecting our relationship. Jessica felt a flutter of hope, but something in his tone made her wait for the but she could sense coming. But, Ryan continued, I also think you're being unreasonable about asking me to cut off all contact with her. She's not just a friend, Jess. She's a colleague. We work on projects together. It would be weird and unprofessional for me to suddenly stop talking to her. I didn't say you had to stop talking to her completely. I said no personal relationship outside of work. But that's not realistic. We have lunch together sometimes to discuss projects. We text about work stuff after hours. We attend the same company events. I can't just pretend she doesn't exist. Jessica felt that familiar sinking feeling in her stomach. Ryan, you're moving the goalposts. We're not talking about professional interaction. We're talking about personal relationship boundaries. I know, but it's complicated. You can't just divide people into neat little categories like that. Work relationships and personal relationships overlap. Do you text your male colleagues about their relationship problems? That's different. How? Ryan ran his hand through his hair, that nervous gesture Jessica had come to dread. Look, I'm willing to be more careful about boundaries. I won't discuss our relationship with Melissa anymore. I won't spend money on her that I should be saving for us. I'll be more mindful about the time I spend texting with her. But you won't end the personal friendship. I can't, Jess. It's not fair for you to ask me to. Jessica felt something settle into place in her chest. Not the sharp break of heartache, but the cold clarity of understanding. Ryan had made his choice, even if he didn't realize it yet. Okay, she said simply. Ryan looked surprised by her calm response. Okay? Okay, you've made your decision, and I respect it. So we're good? Jessica looked at this man she'd loved for so long. This man who still didn't understand what he'd chosen. We're done, Ryan. What? No, that's not what I said. I said I'd be more careful about boundaries. But you won't set the boundaries that I need you to set. You won't prioritize my comfort over hers. You won't choose our relationship over your friendship with her. That's not what this is about, isn't it? Jessica stood up from the table. Ryan, if Melissa hadn't been in the picture, would you have spent our taxi money on some random woman's dinner last night? No, but if Melissa hadn't been there, would you have participated in a conversation mocking me? Probably not, but if Melissa hadn't been there, would you have come home telling me about how some other woman thinks I'm controlling and uptight? Ryan was quiet. The problem isn't just what happened last night, Ryan. The problem is that Melissa brings out a version of you that doesn't respect me. And you're choosing to keep that version of yourself, rather than choosing our relationship. Jessica walked toward the bedroom, but Ryan followed her. Jess, please, don't do this. I love you. We can work through this. Do you love me more than you enjoy her company? That's not a fair question. It's the only question that matters. Jessica started pulling clothes from the closet and laying them on the bed. Ryan watched in growing panic. What are you doing? I'm packing. I'm going to stay with Emma for a few days while I figure out my next steps. You're leaving me? I'm leaving this situation. I can't be in a relationship where I feel like I'm constantly competing with another woman for my own boyfriend's loyalty and respect. Ryan sat down heavily on the edge of their bed. This is insane. You're destroying our relationship over one mistake. One mistake? Jessica stopped packing and turned to face him. Ryan, this isn't one mistake. This is a pattern of behavior that's been going on for months. This is you consistently choosing her feelings over mine, her comfort over my security, her opinion over my needs. I never chose her over you. You chose her every time you defended her behavior to me. You chose her every time you told me I was overreacting to reasonable concerns. You chose her every time you prioritized maintaining your friendship with her over maintaining my trust in our relationship. Jessica resumed packing, folding clothes with sharp, efficient movements. And you're still choosing her right now by refusing to set appropriate boundaries. So that's it? 2.5 years together, and you're just walking away? I'm not walking away from 2.5 years, Ryan. I'm walking away from what we've become in the last few months. I'm walking away from feeling like I'm not enough, like I'm too much, like I'm the problem for expecting basic respect and consideration. Jessica zipped up her overnight bag and turned to face him one last time. I meant what I said in the car last night. If you grab the steering wheel while I'm driving, I'll leave you on the side of the road. Well, you grabbed the steering wheel, Ryan. You've been grabbing it for months, and now I'm pulling over. Jessica had been staying at Emma's for 3 days when Ryan started calling. The first day, he left voice messages apologizing and asking her to come home so they could talk. The second day, the messages became more desperate, with Ryan alternating between begging her to reconsider and getting angry about her overreaction. By the third day, the calls had stopped. Emma's guest room was small but comfortable, decorated in soft blues and grays that Jessica found soothing. She'd been working from her laptop, keeping up with her freelance clients while she figured out her next move. Emma had been incredibly supportive, bringing her coffee in the mornings and wine in the evenings, listening without judgment as Jessica processed her feelings. I keep waiting to feel sad, Jessica confessed over dinner on Thursday night. Emma's husband, Mark, was working late, and the kids were at their grandparents' house for the evening. I thought I'd be devastated, 2.5 years together, and I feel relieved. That tells you something, Emma said gently. It tells me I was more unhappy than I realized. Jessica's phone buzzed with a text message. For a moment, her heart jumped, thinking it might be Ryan finally coming to his senses. Instead, she saw an unknown number. Unknown number. Hey, Jessica, this is Mike from Ryan's work. I think we need to talk. Jessica showed the text to Emma, frowning. Why would Ryan's coworker be texting me? Jessica. What about? Mike. It's about Ryan and Melissa. There's some stuff you should know. Can we meet for coffee? Emma leaned over to read the exchange. That's weird. How did he even get your number? I have no idea. Jessica typed back. Jessica. How did you get this number? Mike. Ryan's been calling out of work. His boss asked me to check on him. I went by your apartment, and he gave me your number. He's pretty messed up, Jess. Jessica felt a pang of concern despite everything. She still loved Ryan, even if she couldn't be with him. The thought of him falling apart made her stomach clench. Jessica. I can meet you tomorrow for coffee, but I'm not changing my mind about anything. Mike. I'm not trying to get you two back together. Like I said, there's stuff you should know. They arranged to meet at a coffee shop in downtown Phoenix at 2 p.m. the next day. Jessica spent the rest of the evening wondering what Mike could possibly have to tell her that she didn't already know. The next afternoon, Jessica arrived at the coffee shop to find Mike already waiting at a corner table. She'd met him a few times at company events. He was a software developer, quiet and thoughtful, the kind of guy who listened more than he talked. He stood up when she approached, giving her a sympathetic smile. Thanks for meeting me, he said as they sat down. I wasn't sure if you would. I almost didn't. But you said there was something I should know. Mike nodded and pulled out his phone. Before I show you this, I want you to know that I think you made the right decision leaving Ryan. What he did was messed up. Show me what? So you know how Ryan called out of work this week? Well, yesterday, Melissa posted something on her Instagram story that, well, here. Mike turned his phone toward Jessica. On the screen was a photo of Ryan sitting on what looked like Melissa's couch, his head in his hands. The caption read, When your friend is going through a tough time and needs someone to listen. Some people just don't appreciate what they have. Set your friendship goals as search always here. Jessica stared at the image, feeling a cold rage building in her chest. She posted this publicly? To her Instagram story, yeah, but it gets worse. Mike swiped to the next screenshot. She also posted this in our company Slack channel. Jessica read the message. Melissa Schachter Marketing. Hey everyone, just wanted to let you know that Ryan is going through a difficult time with his personal life. Some people don't appreciate when they have a caring, supportive partner. I've been helping him work through some relationship issues. Please be patient with him if he seems distracted at work. Well, friendship. Want support. She posted about your breakup in your work Slack? Jessica's voice was deadly quiet. Yeah, and when people asked questions, she said that you had given Ryan an ultimatum about not being friends with her, and that you left when he refused to give in to controlling behavior. Jessica felt like she might throw up. She told your entire office that I'm controlling? Not in those exact words, but yeah. She made it sound like you were jealous and possessive, and Ryan was the victim of an unreasonable girlfriend. Mike showed her more screenshots, messages from Melissa in the company Slack, posts on her social media, even what looked like a longer post on Facebook that painted Jessica as an insecure woman who couldn't handle her boyfriend having female friends. "There's more," Mike said quietly. "Ryan's been staying at her place since Tuesday." Jessica's head snapped up. "What?" "When I went to check on him at your apartment yesterday, Melissa was there. She said Ryan had been too upset to be alone, so she'd invited him to stay in her guest room until he felt better." "Her guest room?" "That's what she said." "But Jessica, Marcus moved out 2 weeks ago. They broke up. Melissa conveniently didn't mention that to Ryan or to anyone at work." The world seemed to tilt around Jessica. "Marcus is gone?" "Has been for a while, apparently. And I'm betting Melissa's been planning this whole thing. The party where you weren't invited, the conversations about your relationship, the public humiliation campaign she's running now. It all feels very calculated." Jessica set down her coffee cup with shaking hands. "Ryan has no idea, does he?" "I don't think so. He thinks she's just being a good friend, helping him through a rough time. And meanwhile, she's telling the entire internet that I'm a crazy, controlling girlfriend who destroyed a perfectly good relationship." "Essentially, yeah." Jessica was quiet for a long time, processing this information. Finally, she looked up at Mike. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because it's not right," Mike said simply. "I've watched Melissa operate at work for months now. She's manipulative, she plays people against each other, and she always has to be the center of attention. What she's doing to you, and to Ryan, is textbook manipulation." "What do you think I should do about it?" "Honestly? Nothing. Let Ryan figure it out on his own. You made the right choice walking away from that situation. Don't let her drag you back into it." Jessica thanked Mike for the information and drove back to Emma's house in a daze. Part of her wanted to call Ryan immediately, to warn him about what Melissa was doing. But another part of her, the part that was finally thinking clearly, realized that this was exactly what Melissa wanted. She wanted Jessica to react, to engage, to look like the jealous ex-girlfriend who couldn't let go. Instead, Jessica did something she'd never done before. She wrote down everything that had happened, from the first time Melissa had made her uncomfortable to this final revelation about the social media campaign. She documented dates, conversations, screenshots that Mike had sent her. She created a clear timeline of manipulation and boundary violations. And then she deleted Melissa's number from her phone, blocked her on all social media platforms, and resolved to move forward with her life. 3 weeks later, Jessica was settling into her new routine. She'd found a small studio apartment in downtown Phoenix, close enough to Emma's family that they could see each other regularly, but far enough away that Jessica could rebuild her independence. Her freelance work was going well, and she'd even picked up 2 new clients through referrals. She hadn't heard from Ryan since the day she left. Emma had reported seeing him at the grocery store once, looking thin and tired. But Jessica had resisted the urge to reach out. Whatever was happening between Ryan and Melissa, it was no longer her concern. She was working at her new desk, designing a logo for a local bakery, when her phone rang. The caller ID showed Mike's number. "Hey, Mike," she answered. "What's up?" "Jessica." Mike's voice was serious, almost grim. "I need to tell you something." "Okay." "Ryan and Melissa were in a car accident last night. They're both in the hospital." Jessica felt the world stop spinning. "What? Are they okay?" "They're alive, but it's bad. They're both in the ICU." "What happened?" Mike sighed heavily. "They were at some party in Scottsdale last night. According to witnesses, they were both really drunk. Melissa apparently dared Ryan to drive them home because she said he was too scared to prove he was a real man." Jessica felt ice water flooding her veins. "He drove drunk?" "Yeah. They made it about halfway home before he lost control on the 101 and slammed into a guardrail at high speed. The car rolled 3 times. Jessica sank into her chair, her hands trembling. "Oh my God!" "The cops said it's a miracle they're both alive. But Jessica, Ryan keeps asking for you. The nurses said he's been saying your name over and over." Jessica closed her eyes, feeling the weight of complicated emotions. Grief, anger, relief, guilt, love, and loss all swirling together in her chest. Is he going to be okay? They don't know yet. He has a traumatic brain injury, broken ribs, internal bleeding. Melissa has a broken back and a collapsed lung. They're both in really bad shape. Jessica was quiet for a long time. Finally, she asked, "Mike, why are you calling me?" "Because his family is flying in from Oregon, and they're asking about you. They want to know why you're not there." "What did you tell them?" "I told them it was complicated. But Jessica, his mom asked me to ask you if you'd consider visiting. She said Ryan talked about you all the time, said you were the love of his life." Jessica felt tears starting to build behind her eyes. "I can't, Mike." "I know, and I don't think you should. But I thought you had a right to know what happened." After Mike hung up, Jessica sat in her quiet apartment for a long time. Outside her window, Phoenix was going about its business. Cars moving along the street, people walking their dogs, life continuing normally, while her world processed this earth-shattering news. She thought about the last thing she'd said to Ryan. "If you grab the steering wheel while I'm driving, I'll leave you on the side of the road." Well, he'd grabbed a different kind of steering wheel, the literal one, and this time the consequences had been catastrophic. Jessica realized that she felt no desire to rush to the hospital, no urge to sit by Ryan's bedside and hold his hand. The woman who would have done that, the woman who had driven 45 minutes at 3 a.m. to rescue him from his own poor decisions, no longer existed. She'd been replaced by someone stronger, someone who understood that loving someone didn't mean accepting responsibility for their self-destructive choices. Instead, Jessica called Emma. "I heard," Emma said as soon as she picked up. "Mark saw it on the news. How are you doing?" "I'm okay," Jessica said, and was surprised to realize she meant it. "I'm actually okay. Do you want to come over? I can make dinner." "Yeah," Jessica said. "I'd like that." As she gathered her purse and keys, Jessica caught sight of herself in the hallway mirror. She looked different than she had 3 weeks ago. Stronger, more confident, more settled in her own skin. The woman looking back at her was someone who had set boundaries and kept them, who had chosen self-respect over settling, who had walked away from a situation that was destroying her peace of mind. Ryan and Melissa had made their choices, just like Jessica had made hers. The difference was that Jessica's choices had led to growth, independence, and genuine peace, while theirs had led to a hospital room and a long road to recovery. Jessica locked her apartment door and walked out into the Phoenix sunshine, ready to continue building the life she'd chosen, a life where her safety, her dignity, and her happiness came first. Jessica was in her favorite coffee shop, working on a branding project for a tech startup, when she saw the news notification pop up on her phone. It was a local Phoenix news article with a headline that made her stomach clench. "Local couple recovers from near-fatal crash, speaks out about drunk driving dangers." She almost didn't click on it. Almost closed the notification and went back to her work. But something made her tap the link. The article featured a photo of Ryan and Melissa sitting together on what appeared to be a hospital patio. Ryan was in a wheelchair, his left arm in a sling, with visible scarring on the left side of his face. Melissa was standing behind him, her hand on his shoulder, wearing a back brace and using a cane. Jessica read the article with morbid fascination. They'd both survived their injuries, though Ryan would likely deal with mobility issues for the rest of his life, and Melissa's back injury had required multiple surgeries. They were now engaged, according to the article, and were speaking publicly about the dangers of drunk driving. "We were both in very dark places when the accident happened," Melissa was quoted as saying. "Ryan was dealing with the end of a toxic relationship, and I was supporting him through that difficult time. We made terrible choices that night, but in some ways, the accident saved us. It brought us together and made us realize what really matters." Jessica felt a familiar flash of anger at the toxic relationship comment, but it faded quickly. She'd learned to recognize Melissa's manipulation tactics, and this was just another example. Even while talking about drunk driving awareness, Melissa couldn't resist rewriting history to make herself look better. The article went on to describe their recovery process, their engagement, their plans to move back to Oregon to be closer to Ryan's family. It painted a picture of a couple who'd found love through tragedy, who'd learned important lessons about making better choices. Jessica closed the article and went back to her work. She felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, no sense of loss. Just a mild curiosity about how drastically different their paths had become. Her life over the past 6 months had been everything theirs wasn't. Peaceful, productive, authentic. She'd built a thriving freelance business, moved into a beautiful one-bedroom apartment in the Roosevelt district, started taking pottery classes, the ones Ryan had always said were a waste of money, and even begun casually dating a kind, emotionally intelligent man she'd met through Emma. More importantly, she'd learned to trust her instincts. When something felt wrong in her new relationships, romantic or otherwise, she addressed it immediately instead of trying to convince herself she was overreacting. She'd learned the difference between compromising and compromising herself. Jessica's phone buzzed with a text from David, the man she'd been seeing for the past 2 months. David, still on for dinner tonight? I found this great little Mexican place in Central Phoenix I think you'd love. Jessica, absolutely. Pick me up at 7? David, perfect. Can't wait to see you. Jessica smiled and tucked her phone away. David was everything Ryan hadn't been. Present, considerate, emotionally available. He listened when she talked. He kept his promises. And he'd never once made her feel like she was asking for too much when she expressed her needs. More importantly, David understood boundaries. When Jessica had told him about her past relationship and why certain behaviors were non-negotiable for her, he'd listened without defensiveness, asked thoughtful questions, and made it clear that her comfort and security were priorities for him. As Jessica packed up her laptop and prepared to leave the coffee shop, she reflected on how much her life had changed. 6 months ago, she'd been a woman who felt like she had to compete with another woman for her own boyfriend's loyalty. Today, she was a woman who knew her worth and refused to accept anything less than genuine respect and consideration. She'd learned that loving someone who doesn't respect you is just a slow form of self-destruction. She'd learned that controlling is what people call you when you refuse to accept poor treatment. And she'd learned that sometimes the kindest thing you can do for someone, and for yourself, is to walk away when they show you who they really are. As Jessica walked to her car in the warm Arizona sunshine, she thought about the steering wheel metaphor that had started it all. She'd spent years letting other people grab control of her life, her happiness, her peace of mind. But now, she was the only one with her hands on the wheel, and she was driving toward a future that looked nothing like her past, and everything like the life she actually wanted. The last thing Jessica thought as she drove home to get ready for her date was this: sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. Sometimes it's building such a beautiful life that you forget why you were angry in the first place. And for the first time in longer than she could remember, Jessica felt completely at peace with the road ahead.